Dr. Doom walks into the room and threatens Stanley and Jack Kirby. Oh. And they're like, oh my God, this is impossible. And I'm like, yeah, because he's a fictional character and you guys are real. Welcome to another vivacious episode of the Sillycast, the only podcast on the internet that I pretend not to put a lot of work into, but I actually put like a ton of work into. On this show, we take any topic and make it just so dang silly you wouldn't believe it. And most of the time it's about pop culture. I feel like I should start saying that it's about pop culture. Not every episode's about pop culture, but a lot of them are. Like, look at my background. Look at all that pop culture. There's some pop culture.
Pop culture. It's there.
That background is popping with culture. And joining me today on this very, very religious episode, I'm sure this episode will be a spiritual awakening for all of us. It is the host of the Doctrine Detox Podcast. It is Adrian Cardwell. Hello.
Hello, it's me.
Okay, let's dive into this topic already. This topic that I've been dreading for a few days now, because I'm like, oh, this feels like this should take some research, but you know who's against doing research? This guy.
Also,
I'm insistent on doing podcasts, but I refuse to do any research into anything. It's very against who I am as a person.
So basically every guy who started a podcast since Corona started.
Exactly. But I've been doing this way longer than Corona's been around.
Oh, I know.
The topic for this episode is religions and Marvel. They sure are a thing, aren't they? Do they make sense?
Not at all.
I don't know. All right. On your podcast, you talk about religion and religious things and people deconverting and whatnot, correct?
That is correct. Only usually I talk about the real world, this current Earth that we live in and not the Marvel universe.
Mm-hmm. And that's why I figured you'd be a very good person to talk with about this particular topic, because I know quite a bit about Marvel. You see this side of the room, there's more stuff on all the walls. There's Marvel stuff on every wall in this room.
I believe
that's true.
You've got Marvel Harley Quinn. You've got Marvel Mandalorian. You've got the Marvel
I sure do.
Yeah.
I refuse to get the regular Harley Quinns and Mandalorians. Has to be the Marvel version.
Exactly. I want to
has to
that.
be. Mm-hmm. Let's dive into it. Let's dive in. One of the things that led us to this point was me talking about Daredevil. He is very famously a Catholic superhero. He carries that sort of Catholic guilt with him in every adventure he goes on. And it's like, isn't it a little weird that he's so insistent on believing this when other deities clearly exist in this universe? Like Thor. If Thor was just outside and I saw Thor around, I might be like, maybe the Norse religion's kind of right. Like, because I see the guy there. Any thoughts?
Oh, definitely. I mean, at that point, it's just willful ignorance. Mm-hmm. You have Thor here in front of you. Then again, Daredevil can't see.
That is true.
So maybe he thinks it's just a ploy, just an elaborate special effects stunt where he can hear the lightning, he can feel the lightning, but he can't see Thor and he can't see that there's lightning. Maybe they just got, I don't know, Marvel Studios to put on a special effects show around him.
So what you're saying is faith is blind.
Oh, exactly. 1000%. Right. Yep.
That makes sense. That doesn't help us out with our other Catholic superhero, the other big one, Nightcrawler from X-Men. What's his deal?
I don't know, because Nightcrawler he's directly been to heaven and hell, apparently.
Yeah. There's a whole bunch of religions and it's like they can all coexist.
They all exist. There's the Christian heaven and hell. I'm pretty sure God actually exists in the Marvel universe somewhere. And
do you know who God is in the Marvel universe? Like the real person?
Who is God in the Marvel universe?
All right, so he is called the One Above All. Oh. And it's not confirmed, but everybody accepts that it's Jack Kirby.
Oh, okay.
Like, I'm pretty sure he says his name is Jack. And everyone's like, it's Jack Kirby. That makes sense. I know a lot of people would expect it to be Stan Lee, but nope.
Well, Stan Lee has the ideas, but Jack Kirby's the one who brings it to life. So that would make sense.
maybe to duo. I was reading, this is a really weird tangent. So I've been reading a lot of the classic Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, Steve Ditko era Marvel stuff. Mm-hmm. And in a early issue of Fantastic Four, they fought Doctor Doom already, and it ended with him like getting shot up into space. And they were like, well, guess we don't have to worry about Doctor Doom anymore because he's gone. He's in space now. And there's nothing in space. Once you're in space, it just ends and then he's gone. And the issue starts with the Fantastic Four being like, we're just Fantastic Four. Isn't life interesting? And then it's like, but let us turn to us writing this comic that you're reading right now. And it shows from behind Stan Lee and Jack Kirby working on a comic. And I'm like, huh? What? Here's where it gets real weird. Dr. Doom walks into the room and threatens Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. Oh. And they're like, oh my God, this is impossible. And I'm like, yeah, because he's a fictional character and you guys are real. But they're like, it's impossible because he was shot into space. And I'm like, that's not how that works.
The only conclusion is that Stan Lee and Jack Kirby live in space.
So it actually goes further. Dr. Doom uses Stan Lee and Jack Kirby to trap, I believe, Mr. Fantastic. I think that's how that goes. It's been a little bit since I've read it. So stupid. I love it. I love how campy that stuff is. Stan Lee and Jack Kirby trick Mr. Fantastic into getting in trouble with Dr. Doom. After that, they're just kind of written out. But like when Reed Richards is going to go talk to Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, he's like, oh, it's time for our weekly meeting with Stan Lee and Jack Kirby so we can discuss what's going to be in the next issue of the comic book. And I'm like, what? Hold on. So in the Marvel comics, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby are apparently real people and they write comics, but apparently they only write comics based on true events in the Marvel universe. And that's crazy to me.
That opens up a lot of like questions though, because like Stan Lee and Jack Kirby are like actual people who exist in our universe.
Exactly.
Does that mean that that's like the Earth 616 version of them, or that it's the same versions of them and they travel back and forth? Since we know that Jack Kirby is a comic book artist in that universe in Earth 616, is he still the one above all that exists as the ultimate deity? Is that Jack Kirby the one above all, or is it our Jack Kirby who's the one above all, or are they the same person? I'm amazed how on topic this is. I wasn't expecting this topic to take us here, but here we are. And honestly, pretty happy. I'm glad that I accidentally did research for this episode. A contradiction of what I said, a mere 8 minutes ago or so. Well, that's what you get for enjoying the topic that you talk about.
I know. I need to start a serious podcast about murders or cooking. And I can just be like, the world sucks. Isn't
That'll
it
be
sad?
Cooking podcast. Yep. The world sucks. Let's make some cookies.
Yeah. A recipe for murder.
Hang on. I'm going to write that down. I'm going to write that screenplay now.
Yeah. I think that'll be good. And it's about a Food Network executive who gets murdered. Great. Rachel Ray is the person who killed him.
No, you ruined it. You ruined it. Now I'm going to release the screenplay and nobody's going to come see it because they all know that Rachel Ray did it.
Rachel Ray did Tomahawk. It. Rachel Ray did the deed where the guy ended up dead.
Yep.
Whew. All right. So I don't know how like into the actual comic stuff you are. In the Marvel comics compared to the cinematic universe, there's so many religions that all bumper sticker coexist. For instance, in the comic book version of Infinity Gauntlet, what Marvel based Infinity War on the movie, you have basically all the heads of these religions come together and be like, do we stop them? What do we do? What do we do here? It's not a super important part of it, but it's just like, that's neat. And you see like the Egyptian god, you see Odin, you see all the big guys, all the big fellas of the major religions here on Earth. And I'm like, all right, weird that you guys aren't going to fight Thanos, but okay.
Well, I mean, we all know that, with religion, at least here on this earth that we live in, the best form of fighting that they have is thoughts and prayers. So that's probably exactly what he's doing.
Well, that's biting. I'm sure nobody's going to comment on that in the YouTube comment section.
Sorry, Tomahawks fans.
It's fine. Let's talk about some of the religions in the cinematic universe, because we don't have a ton to choose from. We have obviously the Thor stuff, Nordic kind of themed religion.
Yep.
We have Bast, the Panther god.
Yep.
That exists for the people of Wakanda. I don't know if Iron Man has any specific religion.
I know in the comics he's pretty atheist.
I find that to be a bit tiresome, that trend of smart people equals atheist. This is a bit of a tangent, but I'm going to go through it anyway. When was the last time you ever saw a positive representation of a Christian in pop culture?
On pureflix.com.
That's what I thought. Exactly. That's the only place. And honestly, let's be real. They don't do a good job of representing themselves. No,
I wouldn't necessarily call that a positive representation, but it's certainly not a negative one.
If someone is religious in a movie or TV show, odds are it's going to be presented to the audience as a cult. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, come on, haven't we done this enough? It just makes me feel tired. I'm like, yeah. I feel like it makes the characters a bit more one-dimensional when it's so cliche.
No, I get that. I think that's reflected a lot in real life, sort of, because that's the way we see it in pop culture. Mm-hmm. But I think that there are people who exist who are very religious and very smart, or very irreligious and very stupid.
Exactly.
I've met a lot of those people.
Honestly, if I'm being real here, I think the notion of like Tony Stark being Jewish is way more interesting than Tony Stark being an atheist.
Yeah.
I just think that is a bit more layered. It's weird that other cultures, we tend to have a bit more reverence for their religions in pop culture. You ever notice that?
Yeah, I think it's because of the picture that Americans have painted for whatever religion that they tend to celebrate. Mm-hmm. And that's more of a topic that I talk about on my podcast. This is a lot more serious. But I think, if somebody is Muslim and from the Middle East, we're going to be more reverent to that because they're actually practicing. They actually believe what they believe instead of just yell about it, which is what Americans do.
I mean, to a certain extent. Yeah. I also think a part of it is a bit of it's going too far in the other direction of in fear of being like a hate mongerer. For a while, like after 9/11, things were very, anti-Muslim. And I feel like we as people have started, like we're coming around in the past decade, be like, we need to stop vilifying these people. They're just people living out their lives, trying to, a peaceful religion. But there's still people that are like, if you're Muslim, you're a terrorist. And I think part of the way pop culture has been presenting that in the past 10 years or so is that they tend to have like a sort of sense of wisdom to them. Mm-hmm. Are you familiar with the concept of black people are magic?
I have heard of the concept before.
Okay. All right. So in movies and TV shows, think back to the 50s and 60s, that sort of era. You can chuck in some stuff from the 70s, but it's something that recurs later, and eventually gay people become magic. It's Hollywood recognizing that a group is oppressed and being so scared of doing anything that will make that group of people look bad that they make them look flawless. So, for instance, black people in those older movies from that point in time, they tend to be the person who is like wise and they got their stuff together, and they typically give good advice to the dumb white protagonist who's screwing everything up. Mm-hmm. Again, it's just a one-dimensional character that people have to fall into. And then again, later on, it turns into gay people. So think of the concept of the gay best friend in your movies and TV shows. They're the ones that are like, I got your love life together. They're the ones that the person goes to for advice on dating and whatnot. Scott Pilgrim versus the World's a good example with his gay roommate.
Yep.
But honestly, it's in so many sitcoms. Just think of a sitcom where there's a gay side character and you're probably fine.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, Kimmy Schmidt comes to mind for me just right off the bat. Yep. I think it's going to be interesting though. Now that we are in the year of our Lord 2021, how it's going to be portrayed in the Miss Marvel, I think is how you pronounce it, Miss Marvel TV series.
I think it's just Marvel.
Marvel. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just because, at least here recently, they haven't backed away from portraying people as they're actually perceived in the real world. Mm-hmm. So I think there may be allusions here and there to Islamophobia and things like that, and how she tackles it on a day-to-day basis. At least that's what I would hope to see.
I hope so. Like, again, I just get tired of, I don't know, cliches. You know, it's very easy to write a cliche instead of a character.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's it for the topic, which brings us to the best segment of the podcast. This entire podcast will just be this segment. It's time for the Patreon segment.
Yay, the Patreon segment. Ladies and gentlemen, if you subscribe to Tomahawk's Sillycast podcast, you will receive 3 beautiful new things.
That's right.
The first tier at $450, that's a cost of a cup of coffee a second, you will receive...
For 450 seconds.
You will receive
really bad coffee.
This pair of sunglasses that you can barely see in my green screen. For $550,000, you will get the Salt Lamp exclusive. Now, the Salt Lamp exclusive, it comes with a salt lamp, but it's pre-lit by Tomahawk himself. So not only do you get the healing from the salt lamp, but you also get Tomahawk saliva, which means
worth a lot.
If you lit the salt lamp, you will probably get corona.
It's also possible you'll get herpes, but there's no way to know.
Most likely, yes. And now this is a bargain right here. The final tier, the best tier,
for the day,
at $2.2 million, you will get me.
I love how many of my guests are willing to put themselves on the line and contribute to the Patreon stuff. I love it. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much. I am certain that someone's going to eat that up. They're just going to...
And you'll get $2.2 million.
From there on, you will look to that person as your God. Really tie everything together. Adrian, thank you so much for being here. Is there anything that you would like for all the silly heads out here to check out?
Of course, yeah. As we've mentioned throughout this podcast, I have my own podcast called the Doctrine Detox. Now, it's not silly like Tomahawk, so I talk about religion, its effects on mental and emotional health, and sort of just the concept of letting yourself take inventory of what you believe rather than just, you know, whatever you were raised with. So I post that everywhere you listen to podcasts every Saturday. I also have a Patreon, which I talk about there. I won't plug here. But definitely check me out. The Doctrine Detox Podcast, everywhere you listen to podcasts.
Yeah, be sure to check that out. I'm so glad to get some more people on here that have a podcast. It's so neat. It makes it feel like this is something.
It's a
lot of times someone's like, hey, this is a quick shout out to my dog. Love my dog. Yeah, I love it. Good stuff. Thank you so much, dear viewer, for checking out this episode of the Sillycast. I really appreciate it. If you liked this, there will be an extended audio version available wherever you listen to podcasts. And while you're listening to wherever you listen to podcasts, you can also check out Adrian's podcast, which I highly recommend. I should be on an episode the same week that this comes out, I believe.
Yes, sir.
Also, please, if you're watching this on my YouTube channel, please like, comment, and subscribe. All that stuff that you know how to do on YouTube. If you're not watching this on the YouTube channel, you should go check out my YouTube channel. I think it's pretty neat. I have another series there that I have started with a buddy of mine where we debate pop culture topics. Episodes out at time of recording are what's the best Batman gadget? What's the best planet to live on in Star Wars? And what's the best Marvel Infinity Stone? We got so many more cool things coming up. Yeah, I think that's it. I think we did it. We did an episode.
Yay!
Look at us go. Yeah. Woohoo. Alrighty. We'll catch you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel called Tomahawk Presents. You can find full episodes of the podcast there. You can also find extended audio versions of the podcast at Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, thesillycast.podbean.com, or wherever else you listen to podcasts. I don't know.